Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Power Platform Governance, Prevent Sprawl, and Secure Data, featuring Microsoft MVP and Regional Director Gokan Ozcifci. My name is Vlad Katrinescu, and I'm Syskic's Technical Evangelist and a Microsoft MVP from Montreal, Canada. Also here with me is Philip, who will be showing you of Syskit Point later on. You may already know Syskit as a company, but for those who don't, let me briefly introduce you. Syskit is a software development company with more than 3,500 customers around the world. We currently have more, and really they're ranging from small businesses to large corporations. Our flagship product, Syskit Point, is a scalable platform that helps you simplify your Microsoft 365 visibility, governance, and security. Whether you need detailed reports, real-time access management actions, activity auditing, optimizing storage, usage, and more, Syskit Point has you covered. Before we start with the webinar, just a few boring housekeeping items, but important. All registrants will receive a recording of the webinar within a few days. After Gokan's presentation, Philip will give us a short demo of how Syskit Point can help you find all Power Apps and Power Automate flows across your existing environments. After that, we will of course have a Q&A session where Gokan will answer any questions you may have. So really please use that Q&A functionality on the right side of the screen and ask questions, ask Gokan all the questions that you have and make them difficult, please. Gokan likes difficult questions. Now it's my pleasure to introduce today's presenter. Gokan is an independent SharePoint and Office 365 consultant for Neoxy, where he assists customers with building innovative, intelligent, and responsive cloud-driven solutions. He's a proud author of books that have reached over 500,000 downloads and is also a founder of several Microsoft communities across the globe. Gokan is a frequent conference speaker and has also been honored with the Microsoft Regional Director and MVP awards. Now I'll give a warm welcome to Gokan Ozcifci. Gokan, are you ready?
I am ready. Let me share my screen. Good morning, everyone. It's always a pleasure to start my talk with you, Vlad, because every time you introduce me, I'm like so honored. Even my wife couldn't tell that many amazing stuff about myself. It's like, wow, this is Vlad presenting
We
myself.
travel so much together, I might know you better.
I think so. I think so. Okay. Just a quick check, Vlad. Can you just let me know if you can see the screen
Everything
well?
looks awesome.
Fantastic. Okay, welcome everyone. It's a pleasure again to present with Syskit, not the first time, and I'm especially honored to be again with Vlad because we're gonna talk about something that we definitely love. We have been presenting those topics a lot of times back in time. It's about the Power Platform. Power Platform, something that everyone really loves in the organization, but not everyone knows what's all about. You know, like we all love to build apps and build automations, but at the end, if you do stuff without knowing what you do, well, at the end, you might end up with issues. And that's the reason why today with Syskit, we joined our forces and said, you know what, maybe it's the perfect opportunity to talk about Power Platform and how we can enable governance and prevent sprawl as well as secure our data. This is going to be a 45-minute session. I hope I'm not going to go over because, Power Platform, you can talk about hours around that, hours and days and weeks and still be in trouble, right? So I'll try to make it as compact, as understandable possible, as human possible, and give you a brief demo about things that I think are fundamental for people who start with Power Platform and their governance. We are not here to build apps and make connections with SharePoint and then do CRUD operations on top of that list. No, we are here to learn about managing, securing, or tenants within Power Platform segments. Now, That being said, I know Vlad said a lot about me, but this is like me. If you didn't see me, I do a lot of stuff like Vlad said. We travel the world, we do conferences, events, write books. We did write a book as well, which will come out very soon. Not about Power Platform, unfortunately, but about SharePoint. I'm from Belgium, so that's the reason why the language or the English is not that perfect, because basically I'm French. So if there are any questions or something that you don't understand, I'll be glad to translate that in French. I can do that in Dutch. I can do that in Turkish. Like any language you'd like to, we can easily translate and get you that data. That being said, I'll always try to make some jokes. They're not always that funny, and that's the reason why you see is the lowest scoring progress bar into my introduction deck. If you don't find the joke funny, my apologies. It's intended. They're just bad, just so you know. So Power Platform, what do we know? This is one of the most classic slides that you will ever see, right? Whenever we talk about Power Platform, we always aim to say that this is the most complete platform for developer productivity, for no code up to pro code, which is somehow true, right? The Power Platform looks easy when you see how Microsoft is promoting it, when you see how evangelists are promoting it. Within 2 clicks, basically they build apps, and that app can become business critical, which to me is not really right, because when you see how complex Power Apps has become today in order to build an app, how Power Automate has become complex in order to build automations, it's not that easy, especially when you look to that first image, you see those big pillars. Even that image is not really up to date. I have to change that. I see some mistakes on screen, but the basics are the same. Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Pages, Copilot Studio, they all, are the foundations for Dataverse connectors, AI Builder, and Power FX. And all of that relies on your managed environment, which is your tenant. So whenever you have your tenant, well, you can use Dataverse connector, AI Builder, or Power FX in order to build your app automations, bots, pages, and so on, which now a new layer comes on top, Copilot. So when you look to this, you might say, okay, this looks very simple, but the reality is completely different. This is actually the reality. Okay, it's right. We have replication development or workflow automation, business analytics, and website development. That's right. This is like the low code. And be aware, I never will say no code, because that doesn't exist anymore. So there is nothing called no code. You always have to code something. So it's really low code. And even that low code is disappearing within Power Apps and so on. It's really coming like medium code, right? And when you want to do some intensive bots, apps, automations, well, you need to use Azure services or connecting services through Power Platform in order to get that application or flow or bot done. So it's not that easy anymore. And the biggest issue is, if you want to build apps, flows, automations, well, you need to know what you do. You can't simply say, okay, I'm going to my Power Apps portal or to my Power Automate portal, and let me just build an app in 2 clicks and make it available to everyone in the organization, and anyone can use that. That's not an option. That's not possible anymore. Back in time, when Power Platform was just released, and when I did a session called SharePoint and Power Apps Better Together, well, then 5 years ago, that was an option. Today, unfortunately, it's not. And what's the biggest thing you need to be aware of is you need governance. You need a way, your holy Bible, your book that says, this is the way on how you should build your apps. This is what is allowed. This is what is not allowed. This is how I will manage my security. This is how I will allow external users, guest users. This is how I enable X, Y, Z in my environment without proper governance and all those services in the backend. Well, you might end up within a big trouble. This session is not about Copilots. Don't be afraid. I know a lot of people talk about Copilot, but today we will not talk about Copilot. And there is one logo I did not put on purpose. We will not discuss licensing as well. And I'm going to retake the joke of Vlad, which always said you need a PhD for Power Platform licensing. Absolutely correct. I'm the least person you can ask for licensing questions. I'm going to avoid that subject, but no Copilot and no licensing today, only Power Platform amazingness within the admin center. Now, I prepared 5 use cases very quickly to showcase, and those are real use cases, right? Real sentences coming from customers within the EMEA region. They had no idea Power Platform could do the apps, flows, bots, and so on, and they just started using it. And those are the 5 funny things I've discovered from the customers, and I'd like to share that with you. The first real case I had is, okay, Gokan, I built a flow and it accidentally updated our live customer data. So what's the story behind that is a business analyst, Vlad, creates, hey Vlad, creates a Power Automate flow in the default environment to test a new idea. And he doesn't realize he's working on live data. His test flow updates hundreds of records. Remember that story, Vlad?
Tells me something.
And what was the problem here, right? You remember that the problem?
Vlad didn't know how to use Power Automate. No, I think it's about the default environment there, something to do with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So people just run into the Power Platform, they just build apps and flows and do a bunch of stuff, and they actually had no environment strategy. They just went into the Maker portal, they just built flows and apps, and at the end, they were updating the records data from any customer, any data into their app. So my insight here is without separate environments like dev, test, production, makers can impact live systems, and this is fundamental. And below on the slide, you will see a link. I also did write a blog post around how important that is from a governance perspective. You can always click on that link because Vlad told you it's going to be shared. Well, you can always go and read what I mean, and I'm going to show you that in a couple of seconds. But it's fundamental to understand that you need to have separate environments for your dev, test, production, maybe from business unit perspective, maybe from a project perspective, right? You maybe have a business critical application and you need a dev, test, and production environment for that business application. Multiple ways of defining your strategy, but you need to have a strategy. A second scenario, which I am sure Vlad remembers as well, because we worked together on that one, I found 5 apps doing the same thing and I don't know which one to use. And the use case here, Vlad, again, a sales manager is told there is an app to request passes for Microsoft event because they do in San Francisco Microsoft Ignite, and Vlad loves the US. He reaches and finds 5 different ones, some old, some abundant, and some with broken flows, which is a real use case. What was the problem here, Vlad?
Well, I think I heard this one a lot. I don't clean up enough after myself after all my tests. So probably a bit of a sprawl issue here.
There you go, absolutely, and that's what's happening if you don't clean up, if you don't, see who is doing what, you will end up with 5, 10, 20 apps doing the same, and at the end user who is going to consume that app has no idea, and without proper governance, well, you will have duplicates, half-finished apps flooding your platform, making it hard to find trusted solutions. And today, within the AI era, it's extremely complex and it's extremely fundamental to find the apps that you need in order to work very efficiently. Another one here is someone built a flow that emails client data to a personal Gmail. And again, it's an enthusiastic intern, Vlad, has built a flow that sends daily reports to their personal email so they can work from home. And that was like the first year of Power Platform, right? Not remote work could everyone do, and people just try to send sensitive information from Power Apps or Power Automate to their Gmail. Here the issue, I don't know if you remember, Vlad, data loss risk, right?
I just love how I went from intern to business analyst to sales manager in like a few years. I feel like dream career
You're
there.
Always going down. I can't really give some customer names, do not offend them. So I'm always using the Vlad to make it a bit funny, but that's a real case. Back in time, or even now, people can use, if you don't put DLP, like data policies, in order to block some connectors, well, they can use any connector today to send sensitive information from your system to their system. And without the proper governance, well, it's going to be very complex to manage that. The last two, the person who built or onboarding app left and no one knows how to fix it. And this one is the most common one. Why? Because someone did an app on a SharePoint list, and Vlad, the original maker, well, now after being degraded multiple times from CEO to business analyst to intern, well, says, okay, I'm done. I'm gonna join Microsoft because I know what to do. I know how to build apps, but he didn't leave any documentation or ownership plan, right? And what's the issue here, Vlad? What do you think?
Well, I had good job security. I didn't document anything.
Probably job security, but the
But
reality is
having a support model, having IT aware of business critical data.
Absolutely, and that's fundamental. If you don't have an application lifecycle management, if you don't know who is doing what, if you don't have reporting, if you don't have analytics on who is using what app, on who is building what app, at the end, if you just grant the license to a person, well, that person can build any app, any agent, any flow, and build and use that for 6 months, a year, 2 years, use that and make that business critical. And when that person leaves the company, well, your automation is going to fail. And that's the thing that we want to avoid, right? We want to make sure, and that's the reason why today you see Microsoft is building some agents that are capable on taking action on behalf of yourself, and they can think on behalf of yourself and do things on behalf of yourself, because we want to avoid that kind of situation where all the corporate is relying on Vlad's knowledge, documentation, or a way to do, and when he leaves the company, well, then we have a big problem. And finally, and this is like the last of the top 5, is the following. We didn't know that this app was business critical until it broke. A story, an app used for tracking inventory in multiple stores goes down. Vlad from IT assumed it was a small proof of concept, but it turns out that it was critical to daily operations.
I'm happy to be back in the IT department, first of all. But this is probably, we need to classify our apps and make sure that we know what is used where and what's important and what's not.
It is monitoring, analytics, knowing your app, the classification of the app. Is it a business critical app? Is it a POC? Is it like only a test, a one-person app, a business app, or an enterprise app? It's all fundamental to understand and know who is doing what. You know, those are only 5 real-world stories without giving the customer name, without giving the customer person. And I always use Vlad. And again, Vlad, my apologies to give you a bad reputation here. But joke aside, those are all things that we need to think about and bring into consideration with governance. The key word here is governance. Without a proper governance, without knowing who is doing what, without classification, without data policies, without environment strategy, it's going to be extremely complex to you to find who is doing what in your environment. And at the end, I know I have a very bad relationship with that word, but it's going to be chaotic, chaos. It's going to be chaos. You're going to have to hire some people to figure out stuff, to maybe go for the CEO starter kit and so on and so on. This is a slide that I gently stole from Microsoft, which says about the governance and how you should set up your governance. They actually break it up into 3 pillars: the secure, monitor, and manage. And then you can see on the security-wise, the first thing, set up the Azure AD conditional access, enable cross-tenant isolation, configure DLP policies, define the environment strategy, things that I already talked about to you, define your data gateways, manage user-centered security roles, and so on and so on. Once you have done all that security aspect, then you move to the monitor, because you did some changes in your system. You need to monitor them in order to know if they are doing well or not well. And then finally, going to the manage pillar, which is then automating policies using connectors, or leverage admin PowerShell or APIs for automation, and so on and so on. One thing to conclude with governance, because I've been telling a lot about governance, is that this is a living document as well as a living application. Microsoft will add more and more capabilities, will add more and more features, more and more experiences to the admin center, to the governance. And you can simply say, okay, let me configure that 8 topics into my security pillar, and then I'm done. No, that's not how it works. You have to review your governance every month, every 3 months, maybe make some meetings with the monitor, understand who is doing what, maybe monitor the Dataverse usage, maybe monitor the connector usage, and depending on the usage, maybe block them, allow them, and so on and so on. It's not going to be that easy for you to do that. Okay, now if we look to the 5 aspects I showed you, the user stories and the issue we had, you see they are all different. Do we have a response to all? Yes, we do. And you can see on the right table, I've put for you down how to fix it in Power Platform. But as you can see, if we look to number 2 and number 4, like the app and flow sprawl or the no app classification, well, you can't simply do that yet in the Power Platform admin. You need to have the COE starter kit, or maybe go for Syskit, or maybe go for XYZ or your custom apps to do that. But the Power Platform admin today, or the Power Platform governance today, it's still growing, it's still becoming mature. It's not the same as Outlook, which has 22 years old. We still are learning and building and bringing that experiences features within the admin center. I'm not going to go again into all those details, but just so you know, like if we go for the first one, no environment strategy, well, that's easy. We can do that within the admin center. But if you go for the second one, well, it's going to be better for you if you would have like a tool like Syskit that could help you finding the apps and flows, and so you can just retract information from there. Now, if we go with details, and then we'll move to the demo. What are environments? Because I'm not sure if everyone is like an expert in Power Platform, but I'm going to explain a few artifacts here and there in order to make the demo more efficient. An environment is actually a container to store, manage, and share your organization's business data, apps, flows, agents, and all other artifacts from a Power Platform perspective. It is a container where you can just put everything into it. It has its own security model, and then you can just give people access so they can reach to your app, flow, agents, or other artifacts within the Power Platform. Things that you need to know, the key facts are each tenant has one admin center, and you can have multiple environments into that admin center. It is created under the AAD umbrella, and it is tied to a geographic location, and you can see that from the image just here. Let me take my laser pointer. Well, you can see that you can change the region from your environment. Mine is Europe default. If you're in Canada, well, you can go for Northern America. If you're from Asia, you can go for any country or any location from Asia, right? It uses different type of environments. We'll come back to that. Well, you have the developer one, the production one, and so on and so on. We'll come to that. You can have either 0 or you can have one Dataverse database. So we can say that you have an environment. It can either have Dataverse or have no Dataverse, and that you can choose here, right? I can add a Dataverse storage into my my environment. And every tenant has a default environment, and that's the tricky one, and that's what I've been explaining. The default environment, it's a one-to-one relationship. So you have your tenant in AAD, it's tied to your Power Platform admin center, it's tied to the default environment. And everyone in your tenants has access to that default environment. We'll come to that in a couple of slides later. The default environment, just here, well, you can see I have my default, I renamed it, which is a bad practice because Microsoft wants you to name it differently. But you can see here, this is the default one. What's so different from the default environment? Well, it is auto-created for every tenant. You don't have to do anything. It's by default, it's there. You can't disable it, you cannot delete that, you just can use it, right? And whenever someone creates an app or flow, well, they're automatically added into the environment make role, which is problematic because what happens today is if you don't have an environment strategy, well, people will start creating apps and flows into the default environment, and everyone can access that, meaning that Vlad can now go to the default environment, modify my app, delete my app without even my permission. So this is not meant for production use. It's only meant for development or testing stuff, or even better for your personal productivity. And Microsoft tells you, right, it's for personal productivity. Don't put your critical apps, your enterprise apps into that. One thing I did forget to mention is you can't backup and restore the default environment. It's just there, just use it as it is. And then you can definitely use the DLPs, the data policies, in order to control the connectors, so you know which app can use which connector, and so on and so on, all possible. Now, coming back to the different types of environments we have, well, you have multiple. The production, and I made a table just for you about the description, like production is for live business apps and data, when to use, and the license cost. I wouldn't really rely on the license cost. This is an average of my customers with their licenses. This can always change with your technical account manager, could be less, could be more. This is just an average I got mine. So you have the production, the sandbox, the development, the quality assurance, the trial developer, all self-explanatory. You all have the description, the what to use when, and the license cost. This is something unique, Dataverse for Teams. So this is also an environment type, and you can only access this through Power Apps. So when you create a Power Apps, you can only access it with Microsoft Teams. So you have to go in your Teams client, find the Power app, and within that Power app, when you start building apps, well, that will create for you a Dataverse for Teams environment. Well, Dataverse for Teams environment is a smaller environment type with small data that you could only use within your teams. You cannot go for XYZ. It has only 2 GB of data or 1 GB of data. I can't really remember anymore, but it's free. That's the main advantage. It's really for people who want to build a small app within their teams, which is included in M365. No additional cost is needed. Well, then you can use that. I just will give that here. Not going to go in details about that. You can all see that here from the slides. Managed environments, an add-on on the environments, you will see all benefits. This is a premium feature, unfortunately, but my goodness, and that's bad for Microsoft, but they bring all the fancy, all the cool features within the managed environments, from the groups, the limit sharing, the weekly usage, the pipelines in Power Platform, the IP firewall, the IP cookie binding, and so on, and so on, and so on. All the fancy, all the cool stuff with the Power Platform environment strategy comes with the premium features of managed environments. I will show you how to set it up, but just so you know, it's a premium feature. It's not with the base license you will get within the Power Platform. DLPs, or data policies as we call them, allows you to control data flows across data connectors when used within Power Apps and Power Automate. Basically, you just tell your platform, okay, you can use that connector, you can't use that connector, and that connector is blocked. But it's a bit different with Power Platform. You have 3 categories, or you can classify it in 3 ways. You have your business, the non-business, and the blocked. So whenever you build a DLP policy, you have to put your business connectors into the business one, the non-business into the non-business, and then the blocked one in the block. It looks complex, but that image will make it very simple for you. So I have my environment Project Alpha, Project Beta, and Project Charlie. I have my DLP policy, and in the business, I'm telling him, okay, for the 3 environments, well, the business is Dataverse and SharePoint. For the non-business, Google Drive, the blocked is X. Well, easy. All the apps and flows within environment A, B, C, well, they cannot use X. It's blocked. However, they can use Dataverse, SharePoint, and Google Drive. However, they cannot mix, meaning if I have an app using SharePoint, I can only use the business connectors for my app. I cannot go for Google Drive. If I have an app or a flow into my Project Beta and I use Google Drive, I cannot mix with Dataverse and SharePoint. So that's the distinction between business and non-business. I hope that this image will make it clear for you. And then I think this is the last slide before we go into the demo. The Power Platform design and runtime with data policies very quickly. Well, basically this slide means that whenever you have a DLP violation, before or even after, and that's the reason why I make a distinction between design time and runtime. Whenever you are in design time, so you are designing your app or your automation, well, Power Apps will tell you, hey, sorry, you're violating with the DLP policies. You cannot save during the design time. Even for Power Automate, it will be marked as suspended and will refuse to execute unless you fix the connectors within your app and flow. And in the runtime, if you apply a DLP policy on apps that were already built and used, well, automatically it will become non-compliant and users cannot be able to launch it anymore. You will get an error, as well as with Power Automate, it will mark as suspended and people will not be able to use that anymore. Okay, I had one more slide and I will go to the demo. Well, actually 2 slides. This is like the out-of-the-box analytics. We'll go deep dive into that just to show you how bad that is. But is that all? No, it's not all. I only talked to you about the environment access and strategy, right? And then the connector access and DLP. When you look on the layers we have, well, you have your governance and security on Azure Active Directory, such as tenant isolation and tenant access. Then you have the environment access and strategy, the one that I really love, I talked about to you. Then you have the resource permissions, dataverse security, and then the on-premises data gateway. All those pillars as artifacts need to have their own security governance model so people know what they do. And today I only have 45 minutes and we are already 31 minutes gone from the webinar. I only have like 50 minutes to go for a demo. Please, I beg you, please go for it, understand what they do, understand how you can manage them, govern them, and build your holy Bible, holy book of governance, and make sure that everyone can access the platform on ease. Now, let me just bring back this here. There we go. And then open this. Okay, so this is the admin center. This is the brand new admin center within Power Platform. So how do you go here? You can either type admin.powerplatform.microsoft.com, or you can just do aka.ms/ppac. So also known as aka Microsoft Power Platform Admin Center. So if you click that, well, you will come here too. Within the new admin center, well, on the left side, if the demo gods are with me, there you go, a bit slow. There we go. You have the boards. Remember the boards as we have in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. You can just here add cards. I used all of the cards, but if you delete one of those cards, well, you can add them. The only bad thing I have with the Admin Center is that there is no extension possible today, so I can't add my own cards out of the box just here. One thing I really love from a security perspective and governance perspective, Microsoft already gives you a score. Remember, I'm pretty sure Vlad knows this, within the admin center of Microsoft 365, you have the secure score. Well, we somehow have the same thing here. Well, I can just click on take action, and then you will see that it will tell me, oh, you know what? On your tenants, well, you have to turn on IP firewalling for 2 environments, and then it will increase from 30%. Turn on auditing, 13%, and so on and so on. So you can easily come here, click on one of those recommendations. It tells you why it's important, and then gives you the explanation. Which environment you set up the auditing by in the admin center, and you have to do this for every environment you have. I'm going to turn this on, user sign-in allowed, activity allowed, and then, you know, like the retention. I can go for a year as an example, and if I click on save, well, now I applied auditing, which is phenomenal for my environment because I know my user activity, I can know the usage of my environment, all the ups and flows into that, and now it will start with enabling that from the secure score perspective within the admin center, which I think is fundamental for everyone who is building their governance to have a look into that, because the more that you're going to use your apps and flows and X and Y and Z, the more items you will have into your list. I hope that this is not going to take a lot of time. So let me open a new tab while this is busy, aka.ms/ppac, and let me now go on the left side to manage here. And that's where actually you will see all the management part. And the one that I'm really interested in is this one. Well, you can see I all have my environments here. I have 3. I have the default one, which I can only use. Remember, I can do a lot about that. Here, I have a Syskit webinar. If I click here on new, on the right side, you will see the same screen as I had a couple of minutes ago. I can give a name, let's say webinar live, just here. And then it asks the fundamental question, is this a managed environment? You can say yes or no. Depending on the answer, if you say yes, it will enable all the features I showed you a couple of seconds ago. In this demo, I'm going to say no. You can choose for a group. That's something new as well. So you can create your groups. I have my Neo Dev, Neo Prod, Neo Test. Why is that? So you can regroup them in a container, and then you can apply a policy on that group, and that will inherit to all the environments you have below. So let's say this is a dev. I'm going to add this into dev. I can change my region. And here I have all the types. Remember, the data was for Teams is only available in Microsoft Teams, not into the Platform Admin Center. I'll go for developer mainly because it's free, and I'll just click on next. And here you can see the language, you will see the currency, and I don't want to have sample data. You can do that if you want to do for testing purposes. Now, within a couple of seconds, you will see that my tenant is here and it's now being prepared. If I click on one, which I prepared a few minutes before the webinar, well, you can click here and say enable managed environments. And by enabling that here, well, you can see all the things that you can do with managed environments, from auto claim licenses, from the solution check and enforcement, and so on and so on. If you click on enable, well, boom, that now environment will have the managed environment capabilities. Remember, it is a premium feature where then you can go and enable a bunch of settings. We will come back to that in a couple of seconds. If you go to the tenant settings, which is, if I may say, and I hope there is no one from Microsoft, which is legacy from Dynamics, right? If you see how flat and list-wise it is, it's not a screen that you will come every day, but from a governance perspective, it's good to know to check all those activities, all those items from a tenant perspective, and to know what they do. One of them is this one, the AI Builder credits. You can enable or disable the AI Builder credits for person that has already consumed a lot, and if they're like unassigned credits, they can also consume that. So allow users to consume unassigned credits. Well, maybe you will say no, maybe you will say yes. It all depends, because AI Builder credits are not cheap and they consume a lot. So if you are like me, you love building apps consuming AI for metadata extraction, or if you want to, like scan an invoice and then extract all the data of it, all those AI Builder capabilities will consume a lot of credit. So, things like that, it's very fundamental to understand within the tenant settings. Going back to my environment, let me see if the webinar live is ready. You've seen a couple of seconds in order to do that. And when you click into your environment, well, you will come into it didn't come, but there we go. You will now come into the settings pane of your environment. Here on the right side, well, you can see you can manage the access, you can see all the resources you have, and so on and so on. What's interesting for you is the settings pane first, and then the membership. If you go on the settings pane, well, you will see all the settings again. I think legacy from the Dynamics era, you will see all the settings you have. My gosh, a lot. And remember, it's only a container, right? Environment seems easy, but you need to know all of those settings in order to make sure that you know what to do within your environment. Not an easy task. If you click, let's say, for features, and that's where you want to go, you will go more into the legacy of Dynamics, because this is not something from M365, this is not something from Azure. You will see all the options in one screen. One of them is like Copilot. I told you, yes, we're not going to use that Copilot word into my session, but hey, we'll have to. You can enable or disable the new AI-powered Copilot features for people who make apps, right? So if you don't want to do that, you just click on that, and that one is going to be off for you. So you can do a bunch of stuff from a feature perspective just here. I'll come back to my environment from here. I have my live. I'll go for membership. Normally, the creator of the environment is automatically added as a sysadmin. Now, if I go to my make.powerapps.com environment, do a small refresh just here, and hopefully within a couple of seconds this is going to load. You will see my environment into the right pane above, and I can just switch to that. Come on. There you go. This is the default environment, right? And if I click on it, you will see that I have the webinar live, the brand new one that I did create. When you click on it, well, now I'm going from the default one to the live one, and I can just now build apps within that environment here. I can use Copilot, create me an app for Pokemon TCG game, and then click on next, and AI or Copilot will now build that relationship table for me in order to create my app. It's not a Power App session. I'm not going to do all of those things, but just so you know, just by talking to your Copilot, well, it will be able to create that app for you within the brand new environment you did create. Now, while this is being built, let's move back here. Okay, I'm going to just close this and come to security. And here, well, you have your overview, and then you have the data and privacy. The customer managed encryption key and the Azure Virtual Network policies, you see the little icon. That means that this is a managed environment settings, which means it's a premium feature. If you click on data policy, that's the most one interesting for us. This is the DLP policies. I can create a new policy, give it a name, Webinar Live, here, and then click on next. And then here, well, you can see, as I mentioned, you have the business ones, the non-business ones, and the blocked one. Let's say, as in my example, I want to bring this to blocked. Boom, it's blocked. And let's say SharePoint, Teams, Dataverse are the business ones. And all the rest, well, they can leave into the non-business, but they cannot be mixed. Let's say that's my use case. And then I'll just have a look here. All good. I'll click on next. Do I have any custom connector? No. I'm going to just leave that. And here is the most important one. It's your scope. Can I add this to all environments, add to multiple environments, and then I choose environments or exclude certain ones? Let's say I'm going to add this to multiple one, and now I'll just choose the Syskit ones. I'm happy with that. Let me see. I'll click on, yeah, those three is good. Add policy. I have the 3 environments now into that policy. I'm going to exclude the default one, click on next, and you'll see that I have 3 business connectors, more than almost 1,400 non-business and 1 blocked, and then I'll create my policy. Now, for the 3 environments I have, no one would be able to use that X connector, not because I don't like Elon Musk, no politics into my sessions, but people will not be able to use X anymore into the environment. And finally, because I have only like 2 minutes left, you can also go for monitor. Just here, you can see an overview of your apps, which is, if you ask me, horrible because, okay, I don't have apps, but this is another way on showing stuff. But you can go for the logs. Again, nothing. This is because I'm not using extensively Power Apps and Power Automate and so on. It doesn't give you a lot of information. It just, should show you a bunch of stuff here, nothing happening. And that's what I think is horrible today within the Power Platform Admin Center. Even though it's able to show you some stuff, nothing here. And then if you go for the thing that's really working on my side is you can go from a licensing perspective. It's going to show you here the momentum of, okay, how many licenses do you have today? That's the amount of licenses I have, the M365, the Power Apps per app, the environments, and then the intelligent recommendations by using the apps. You can do the same for Power Automate just here. One final thing I wanted to show you before heading, where was it again? Oh, I'm not sure. Here it is. There we go. I think this was it. Yeah, this was it. This will show us more information. This is the new admin center. I'm not used with the new admin center, but hey, within the manage, you have the products that you can monitor and manage from an admin center from a governance perspective. Well, you will see the amount of usage of your Power App. You can filter all the apps you've created back in time. using it here. Well, you can go for the types, and then you can also go for the regions. What's really nice, and that's something I have to admit, that's phenomenally well done, is you have an app inventory. I think they are way too late, and it's badly shown. And this is really a partner opportunity today, because I can see here all the apps on an undefined date, and then you can see all the apps back in time I've been doing as a Canvas app. And this one, my goodness, I still remember it was from 2021 or 2022. It was my first app ever created, and you'll see 2020, right? No, 2018. There you go. I remember 2020 was the last modified, and I could still find those, and you can see a bunch of apps I've been using back in time. And you can do, and that's the thing, it only gives you the reports with how many environments connections being used, all details within a monitoring and analytics perspective. I can talk a lot. We can go on all over the features, but it's gonna be too much for you all. So if I have to go back to my presentation, thank you so much for listening. This was in 45 minutes the explanation of environments, DLPs, managed environments, a bit about analytics and reports, which I'm not a big fan, I have to admit. I really prefer the COE or the one with Syskit. And now I think I hope you enjoyed. That's the first thing. And there is one URL I want to emphasize, is the syskit.com blog, and that's where all my knowledge comes from blogs, webinars. I highly encourage you to take that and put that in your resources, so you can always check what I had to say. Vlad, did I do well?
You did amazing as always, Gokan.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the awesome presentation, and for everyone, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A. Don't be shy. The most difficult questions you can for Gokan, put those in there, please. And we'll give Gokan a quick break. And meanwhile, we'll turn things over to Philip, who will show you how Syskit Point can help you find all Power Apps and Power Automate flows across your existing environments. Philip, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Just mic check. Can everybody hear me normally?
All is good. All is perfect.
Okay, perfect. At least Vlad can hear me, if nothing else. So hi, everybody. My name is Philip. I'm a product owner here in Syskit. And today I'd like to show you a couple of our Power Platform features we've been developing. Just a little preface about why we decided to go this direction. In addition to what Gokan was already explaining for the past 45 minutes, when looking at the Power Platform, we interviewed a lot of users who were tasked with managing Power Platform, and we've noticed several challenges that they faced that we wanted to help solve. So the main challenges we saw was the lack of visibility into usage and inventory, which means that usually a lot of people in the company have Power Platform licenses so they can create flows and apps and different resources, but unlike SharePoint, there isn't really a great way to see an overview of all of the resources that are being created, and that makes it very hard to manage, which leads to sprawl and also possible data and compliance risks. For example, like Gokan said, you can have some sensitive and premium connectors. You can also have some unauthorized usage. You can have a difficulty with the lifecycle management of apps and flows, which means that you may be that your tenant may have a lot of unused or orphaned apps and flows. Orphaned apps and flows meaning without owners, and all of that requires a lot of time to manage it. But if you don't have a great way to view everything that needs to be managed, it makes it even harder. And in addition, all of that leads to increased cost, requiring more time to find that information. And in the end, it can also impact the performance of the entire tenant. So the way we decided to tackle this is by first focusing on providing users with an easy to navigate Power Platform inventory. And here you can see the dashboard of Syskit Point. And here you can see the Power Platform tile, which is currently in free preview. And that tile gives you an overview of the most important metrics about your environment. That, to be more specific about all of the environments that you have in Power Platform. So you can see the number of environments, apps, flows, connections, as well as the orphaned and inactive resources that you have available. So to start with, let's see the list of environments. We can just click on this tile, and it's going to lead us directly into the environments report. And here we can see an overview of all of the environments. We can see the default environment right here, as well as all of the others that have been created in the tenant. We can see the most important information about who created it, when it was created, how many apps, flows, connectors it has, how many external users, and a whole bunch of different information. For example, we can see the last activity, the storage, and also we have more information that is not available by default, but you can enable or disable any specific pieces of information that you may find useful. But if you look at this list and figure out that maybe based on activity or maybe the number of apps and flows, you see that there are environments that aren't being used and that you want to clean up, you can simply select them. For example, let's select this product analysis, and you can delete the environment right from Syskit point. So you simply you can make sure that you really do want to delete this information, and you can also recover it through Microsoft in the time period that they allow. But if you figure out that you want to clean up your environment, you can do it right from Syskit point. So right now, let's move on to the report center to the left instead of going through the tile, and here we can filter out all of the Power Platform reports. So we looked at the Power Platform environments report, and also we can see that you can see the inventory for the Power Apps and Power Automate. You can also see the permissions for Power Apps and Power Automate, and you can also see a list of all of the connections that are available. So for right now, let's go into the Power Apps inventory, and let's select all of the environments that we want to analyze to search for apps. And if we run the report, we're going to get a list of all of the apps across all of the environments that we selected. Once again, we can see an overview of all of the information that may be useful for us to make decisions moving forward, including the description of the app, who created it, when it was last launched. We can see how many owners it has, how many people or groups it's shared with. And once again, there are a lot more information available here, maybe how many unique users or launches it has in a certain period of days. So you can enable or disable this information by default. Now, what's important here is that you can also filter this out to see just the inactive or orphaned apps. So let's start with orphaned. Orphaned apps are those that don't have an active owner. So in this case, we have two apps that you can we can see that they were created by Miriam, but if we select this app and go to change owners, we can see that the primary owner Miriam is inactive. So this is an issue that needs to be mitigated. So let's remove Miriam and let's add Eva and click change. And let's do the same for the other app. So let's remove Miriam and let's add Alex, for example. So we can change the owner, the primary owners of the apps, and that's going to remove them from the orphaned list. Doing this is important because it's very beneficial and actually best practice to have somebody who can manage the Power Platform resources that you have available. Otherwise, they're just using storage and using space, but there's nobody to manage them, to fix issues, or sometimes you may even figure out that these resources are not needed if they are not being managed. If we go back to the list of apps, I just want to show one more thing that Gokan mentioned. Sadly, in this environment, we don't have a list of apps dating back from 2018, but you can easily search by when they were created, like to show either the latest or the oldest apps in the environment. So we can simply click here and toggle and see the oldest apps created in the environment, which would show us the same information that Gokan showed from the admin center. Now let's move on to looking at the inactive apps and flows. Inactive apps and flows are those that haven't been used in a certain time period. And just for a second, let's go out of the report center. And if we click the gear button here in the top right to go into the settings and select Power Platform on the left, we can see that you can define how many days is necessary to pass until an app or a flow is considered inactive. The default is 30, but if you want to change this number to 60, 90, 160, any number you want, you can simply change this, and then this is going to be reflected in what apps and flows are shown as inactive. So to test this, we're going to leave it as 30, right, just for now. So let's go back to the report center here on the left, and this time let's just search automate to see the Power Automate inventory. If we go in, once again, we can select all of the environments we want to analyze. So let's select all of them once again. And like with the Power Apps inventory, we can see a list of all of the flows that are available, once again, with all of the information that we may need. Some of them are enabled by default, some of them are not, but instead of going through all of them, you can see that this is everything that you need to figure out, does this flow need to exist, or what needs to be done with it. So in this case, we can filter out inactive flows right here, and it's going to show us all of the flows that haven't been active in the past 30 days. Now, currently, if we select this, we can only change owners or add co-owners. So in the future, we will add an action for deleting flows and apps. So you can also clean up those resources directly from Cisco Point. That's something that's coming in the near future. But for now, let's just select multiple flows and click Add Co-Owners. Let's say we want to add Alan here. Click Add. Alan is going to be added to all of the flows that we selected as a co-owner. So while that action is running in the background, it sometimes takes a while depending on how many resources you've selected or what actions you're doing. But after the action is completed, it's going to notify you. Let's go to the report center once again, and let's filter out Power Platform reports. So here we've looked at inventory for the environments, apps, and flows. Let's look at the permissions reports. So let's go into app permissions, for example, and if we click to run the report, we can see the list of all of the apps that are available across all of the environments that we want to look at. And if we expand this, we can see everybody who has access to that app. So this gives you a really simple, granular overview of everybody who can access a specific app, and the report looks the same for flows. So instead of showing apps, it's going to show flows. And what's important to note here is that not only can you see individual people, you can also see groups. For example, here is a security group called Intercompany Sales, and you can also expand that further down to see other groups within, and then all the way down to specific users within those groups. So in just a few clicks, you can expand or collapse all, or you can do it manually on all of the apps that you want to see. For example, let's say we just want to see the action grid. We can see everybody who has access here. And once again, we are planning on allowing you to clean up your resources directly from these reports, but not all of those actions are available as of right now. So lastly, let's go to the home once again and look at the tile that we mentioned in the beginning. And from here, let's navigate directly to the connections that we have available. We can see that we have 31 connections. So if we click this number, it's automatically going to generate a report that's showing all of the connections across all of the environments that are available. And like with previous reports, you can see a whole bunch of information. But what's maybe the most useful here is that you can filter out the tier to show only the premium connectors. So this way you can see all of the premium connectors that are available. You can see if they are being used, and you can see whether they are something that needs to be allowed. So this is also one way that's going to help you show the information that you need, and you can easily access that information so you can make better decisions moving forward. And with upcoming iterations, we're going to allow you more actions to clean up these reports and to clean up problematic things in your environments directly from Siskit Point. So that's all of the present. That's all for my demo for now. So I'm going to give the word back to Vlad. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to ask us.
Thank you, Philip, for the excellent presentation. And now it's time for Q&A. Gokan, I have quite a few questions for you here when you are ready. First of all, your favorite topic, licensing. Does the COE, not CEO, sorry, we've been talking too much about job titles. Now I'm already going for CEO, but does the Center of Excellence Starter Kit require premium licensing?
No, it's like a community-driven solution. It doesn't require any premium solution as far as I know. It's something separate from the Power Platform of Microsoft. It's heavily supported by Microsoft, but it's not a Microsoft tool. Let's call it that way.
Okay, do you have any tips for dealing with users, creating trials and developer plans? How should those be governed? For example, a developer plan creates a one-off environment for the associated user. So what should admins watch for?
We disabled it. So we know trials, horrible thing. It's good for Microsoft, right? Because it gives the taste to end users, to power users. And trials gives you all access, right, to everything, to premium feature and so on. So basically, we disabled it. We didn't find any, let's say, human way, and we just went on the very hard way. We just disabled trial environment. So no, we just disabled that.
Okay. Is there any integration between the Power Platform DLP policies and the Purview DLP policies?
Completely separate. So Purview policies are meant for, like labeling and so on, and those for content in SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, but not with Power Platform. Two separate things. One is for connectors, the other one is for content. Purview is for content.
Awesome. Now, can you describe some of the key features of managed environments?
I think you have 20 of them, like from environment groups to limit sharing, IP firewall, customer managed key. The one that I love is like the limit sharing. We have a strict rule with one of our customers which says you cannot share more than 5 this app, especially when you're into a dev and Q&A environment. We want to make sure that only a few people, aggregated people, can test the app and not everyone. So we just limit the sharing option on that app. So that's one of the features I like. But like that question is a bit complex to answer because every company, every maker, every admin has different needs, different requirements, and to me, you have to see it as a whole big thing. Like the managed environment is not like a subset of items of features or experiences. It's a whole. Like I enable the managed environment and I get all those options that I can enable for my environment. I think when I look how Microsoft is dealing today, like Vlad, we've been discussing this a lot of time, like what they do with SharePoint and Content AI, with what they do with Teams and Teams Premium, all the things you have to pay for cool and fancy stuff. If I had $5 to spend, I think managed environments would be the most what I would put my money on, because that's where you get all the added value on top of it.
Okay, before I go to the last question, I got a really cool comment here that you're gonna love in the chat.
Okay.
You're gonna love. I know you're gonna love this one. So, Gokan is as cool as it sounds. A mix of Goku with Gohan from the Dragon Ball anime, and I feel like Nuno really knows you well because of all the stuff in the back. And
yes,
Gokan
in
is
the
a
back.
big Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball collector.
It is. Thank you so much, Nuno. I appreciate the comment. Thank you.
And last question that I see here is there any way to keep users from creating things in the default environment?
No, the only thing you can do is you can basically apply some policies, data policies, and say, okay, on the default environment, you're blocked on a certain type amount of connectors. but you cannot block people on building apps and flows into the default environment, and that's the biggest issue today.
I think also there's the new environment routing might start to help with that. Like Gokan said, it's a managed environment, it's a premium thing, but I
Yes.
think you can configure it to help a bit with that. I don't think it's the the foolproof way, let's say, but definitely something to look at if you have premium licenses.
There we go. By default, you cannot, but probably with the managed environment features, you could, but by default, no.
Okay, Gokan, I think we have, or I should say Goku, we have covered everything. Thank you so much. Maybe a webinar just on managed environment will be cool for next time because, like you said, there's so many features. So I think that's something that would definitely be interesting. But thank you, everyone, for joining us on today's webinar. As mentioned, everyone who registered for the event will get the recording of the webinar. And thanks again to Gokan for today's presentation. Gokan, any final words before we wrap things up?
Thank you so much for listening to us. It has been more than an hour. I hope you enjoyed and learned at least one thing today. It's about governance. If you have any questions, reach out to Vlad, myself, or to the Cisco team, and we'll be glad to help you all. Thank you. Merci, bedankt, shukran, teşekkürler in every language. Thank you so much.
You still got to learn the Romanian one. I'll have to teach you when I see you next time. So you can add that to the list. But if you have any further questions, like Gokan said, reach out to me or him via LinkedIn, or for any Cisco Point questions, reach out to sales@cisco.com. It was a pleasure having you all there today, and see you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.